I've been in your shadow for hours, but you sense nothing.
Uneasy is the head that wears the crown. That's most certainly true of Insomniac, the single biggest studio during the launch year of the PlayStation 5 and beyond. That crown appears to be no lighter, as yet again they were tasked with showing off the biggest single gameplay of any first party at the PlayStation Showcase last week. Being a technology-focused team since their inception during the 32-bit era, they quickly improved their engine to show off the potential of the PlayStation 5. Will they continue to swing higher and further than all others in Spider-Man 2? Now, gameplay previews always need to be caveated that this is all a work in progress and will significantly change come launch. But when it comes to software development, the polishing, the refinement and optimization are all later in delivery, and some of the footage shared here bears this out, something we have seen consistently over the years. Now, the reveal was split into two separate pieces, almost as if Sony were not sure which of the two they would show, or both. The first being a real-time cinematic that introduced a new main villain in Kraven the Hunter, taking out an unknown expendable bad guy in hard target fashion. Now, we can see the sharp material quality, keyframed facial animation and performance capture have continued from the first two games, along with the physically based but heavily stylized rendering and character models. And although surely it has some boosts across the board, noticeably in the hairspline technique they used in the remaster, Miles and Ratchet & Clank, and exclusive to the PlayStation 5 in its higher fidelity mode, here ramping up the beards, hair and warm collar of Kraven, perfect for those cold jungle days. The models, the textures, the animation do not appear significantly improved, but they're certainly better. Not a slight or required, as the originals were already top tier in this regard, and these sections may also change come release. From a real-time cinematic perspective, they have retained the same seamless and integrated dynamic camera, fast load and swaps as before, and I'm sure the data and memory management are key aspects the team are still knee-deep on development. We got a nice mix of these during the second segment, a 7+ minute of gameplay, highlighting that we can expect more of the same mix of free roam combat, exploration and QTE sections, or at least that's what they showed us in this teaser, which follows the same engine blueprints at least that delivered on a broader and more visceral story than the first two games. From this aspect, the improvements seem to be refinement and incremental steps, with potentially still a ways off completion, with that stated autumn 2023 release.
Over there! The one with the tendrils! Move, move, move!
Now, showing an evolving game is nothing new, and we know this is true of Insomniac of old, with Rift Apart having multiple showings before release that demonstrated its progression. But even Spider-Man had the same, with the infamous Puddlegate incident of E3 2017's reveal compared here to the final PlayStation 5 game in its fidelity mode. The game was improved in many areas since then, least of which was the reflections and the PS5 remaster that introduced ray trace reflections, something Miles Morales pushed further still, adding muscle deformation on Miles' suit, which leveraged the GPU via the Ziva RT machine learning mesh calculation system, which is used to generate more film-like cloth and muscle deformation, which makes a huge increase on character movement, builds, and the realism overall, as these comparison shots of the mesh technology enabled versus disabled clearly demonstrate on the Miles Morales title. Now, this is almost certainly in use here in the sequel across all suits, or at least the two outfits here donned by Miles and Spider-Man. Sorry, I mean Venom. And in addition to that, the hair spline techniques, the ray tracing itself, and almost instant loading show that Insomniac are a victim of their own success in some ways. With all of these being added to their engine post the PlayStation 4 Originals release, and all exclusive to the PlayStation 5, it means that aside the improvements in these tentpole tech items, they've already played their hand on key benefits these will present in the sequel. But that is not to say they have not continued to expand on the engine features whilst improving on the ones already present. One area this has been shown off quite well was the seamless character switching. It's not new, obviously, dating back to Maniac Mansion. The Lost Vikings was built around it on 16-bit machines, as was Donkey Kong Country, among a myriad more. Modern games such as Watch Dogs Legions and even GTA 5 also enabled this across open cities, even on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, which is closer to what we see here in Spider-Man 2. The swap seems to be triggered here via a set piece ending, but it may be a free choice for you during the game. The load to the new spot is only a few seconds or less, but it's hard to pick out exactly when it starts to load and swap. This is far more complex than just streaming in new data, and it was actually a very impressive technical feat for this demonstration. A mere few seconds to switch across this huge New York map, which is now expanded here with new sections not seen in the previous two games, means it could become more than just a technical feature and actually a big gameplay and puzzle solving element within the title, which the team have actually teased towards, and I look forward to learning more on this closer to launch. Now, complementing this, or building upon it, is the stark increase in world streaming and traversal. Miles by name and by nature, as using these context launch points, he can now catapult himself skyward and then become Sonic the Hedgehog in New York as he glides through the speed rings at a breakneck pace. Compared to the remaster, aligning this small section at the edge of Manhattan docks is impossible, as the new game is at least 2 to 3 times faster in moving through the city now. But the streaming of data, assets and straight into real-time cinematics shows that they have made significant leaps here. Helped by not having to factor in any mechanical drives or the PS4's memory and CPU subsystems, this level of dynamic data and context animations, movement and streaming is perfectly demonstrated in the ending chase across the waters of New York, as visibility is long and yet popping is kept to a minimum, if still present at times. This will become, I'm sure, a key area in the game's set pieces like the previous ones, but being able to juggle more enemies, objects, density of locales and animations on the fly should again be a great enabler for Insomniac to ramp up the action, the fidelity and dynamic nature of these bread and butter scripted but fun action sequences, alongside making fast travel a core gameplay feature.
Cool if I borrow this? This is really exciting!
Another big area of improvement, and certainly a standard weakness within video game rendering, is water. The first title certainly didn't have the best water in games, but far from the worst. It effectively used a tessellation height map surface for the water bodies themselves, in addition to a shader tessellation of geometry around the character themselves, which is bolstered further by some alpha effects to simulate the impact of you going in and out of the water. Specular and normal maps were then added on top, which gave additional detail for the undulations and the reflections of the sunlight bouncing off the surface, which was convincing, certainly from a distance. But you generally didn't spend much time in water at all, and it wasn't used heavily in the title. In addition to this, the reflections used screen space reflections. So looking at the new game, they've certainly improved water bodies in 2 key areas. They've removed the need to rely on screen space reflections now, or at least in this mode shown off, which removes the artifact we saw with the occlusion and disocclusion errors that happen often with screen-spaced effects, now replaced fully with ray trace reflections across all these large water bodies. In addition to this, they seem to have improved the reflection quality of those ray trace reflections, adding more of a stochastic and therefore diffuse level of contact across multiple surfaces, which works perfectly for water at these low glancing angles, giving strong Fresnel lighting as that low sun bounces off the surface, along with the water ripples and undulation, gives a very pleasing level of visibility as you fly through this very frantic section. In addition to this, they've certainly significantly improved the tessellation and height map undulation, as you see here with the fight between Miles and Doc Croc. As he dives into the water beside, it pulls that water surface down as it stretches and morphs around his impact before bouncing back up again. Now, in addition to this, we see very similar alpha effects on top of this, which again are likely placeholder areas that the team will still be working on. It is drastically improved over the previous titles though, with a much better mix of alpha effects GPU particles, hiding that blend between the characters and the tessellated mesh of the water body. This is likely still work in progress though, as I say, and it may change and improve come launch. As noted previously, water simulation is very expensive and difficult, and therefore it really is a fluid simulation that is required to convince, but the team have done an exceptional job in improving on the previous title, and it does point to the fact that they'll be using water bodies and potentially water combat more often, due to the fact it was a key element in this demonstration.
I'm one of them, remember? Bro, that's it! Pete! Alley-oop on 3!
The original PlayStation 4 and Pro versions were and remain some of the best looking open world games of last generation. The PlayStation 5 updates improved in key areas on that, And comparing the remaster and Miles to the latest title, in only the small sections we can use in those games, we can see that changes to building, assets, materials, and reflections are present. Some of the level of detail, certainly in the tree billboard imposters, do appear to be placeholder, and textures are also possibly being worked on. This is commonplace. These can be swapped out with the latest versions at any point during development. Comparison shots show tree billboards are worse at times, as are textures, but some are due to the bitrate of this 4K feed. Streaming travel is now 2 to 3 times faster than before, as no PlayStation 4 version needs to be factored in. And trees do not swap to 3D geometry until a little closer than the previous titles. Now, this may be a balance between the longer draw distance it seems to have in the city and the huge traversal increase it now has. But this is a slice of a game deep in development, so it is also likely quick wins to achieve a stable frame rate for this demo were deployed, which never seemed to buckle from its 30 FPS target. Like the previous games, Insomniac's temporal injection AA is present and includes a dynamic resolution scaling element, which counts here fluctuate from a counted high of 3456 by 1944 and a low of 1440p. These are approximate. Now, this is the best use of the machine, and the image quality and details were impressively sharp, and the game has always had an exceptionally clean and stable image as a result.
Must be sushi night. You still got that hunter drone you hijacked?
One of the areas noted is the time of day and sun does move in this demo at certain points, which may be a bug, but may also point to the fact they've now moved to a full time of day cycle between blends, whereas the previous titles used fixed points of day and weather systems for story beats. The game itself also uses cascaded shadow maps from this demo, with the sun being a key light source in the demo, but also interiors show the cascade can be improved at a relatively short distance. That said, interior electric lights do seem to have been improved with their contact hardening and a soft penumbra as they stretch further from the light and contacting source. The first games also had interiors that were lit by outside lights, as here, and these cast shadows and reacted well with the excellent physically based materials. Walking through this dark section, we can see the dynamic light sources, soft shadows, and improved ray trace reflections on the metal pipes. These have improved over the previous games and look much better. In addition, the game also uses screen space shadows and ambient occlusion, with the long distance shots at the start helping to ground the objects and stop that game look that can happen. But you can see these draw out as the screen space data is occluded or drawn off screen. We can see this during traversal also, and these are good solutions that balance quality with performance. The ambient occlusion does appear to be better than before, with it being of a higher precision, or at least does not present the same occlusion issues as per the first game. Now, having no ray trace shadows may again only be a development issue, as the previous game never launched with a 60 FPS ray trace reflection mode, but this actually came post-launch. So the final game may yet see these added, even if for short-range interior light sources, which would again be a perfect balance of performance and quality. Which closes off this preview of an overall impressive demo from Insomniac once again. The areas that have not been shown or can be confirmed are likely going to be the most interesting. For example, the deformation and venom powers could be expanding on that Ziva RT machine learning they introduced in Miles Morales, and this will aid the dynamic blends and morphs between fixed meshes during gameplay in real time. And actually, the venom powers were very impressive from a visual and animation perspective. This aids memory, space, and improves that film-like quality they're going for. Now, this theory is bolstered further as the venom arms and webs now cast shadows, which only the thicker web shots did in the first game, as these are polygon based and not a flat texture which the web lines were, as they do not cast shadows. If we look back to the increases the team made to both Spider-Man games and Rift Apart post-release, I think it's safe to say that this is just an appetizer for the main event come the end of this year. What we have is a clear evolution on the base the first games established, with clear improvements across many areas, and I'm sure the web swinging combat will be even more flamboyant and flashy than the first games. And I for one am certainly looking forward to swinging back into that very soon. And that's it for another performance and graphic related preview. If you like what we do here on IGN, then keep it IGN Performance Reviews, and we'll catch you on the next one.
1, 2...